I wish to thank Dr. Piyush and Dr. Jaya for making me a part of this IC. So I'll be talking about one of the oldest techniques of refractive surgery, which is surface ablation. So as refractive surgeons, we often come across this big dilemma of whether to perform a PRK, that is a surface ablation, or a LASIK in a particular scenario. And we all are well aware that LASIK has become one of the most popular corneal refractive surgeries because it gives us a very good post-operative outcome, a wow factor to the patient. The visual rehabilitation is fast compared to a PRK, in which obviously the patient has more post-operative discomfort. Nevertheless, the possibility of sight-threatening complications associated with the stromal flap in LASIK, and there are higher chances of ectasia. And with the advent of newer modifications in the surface ablation technique, this has led to a renewed interest in these techniques of late. Like Dr. Piyush was saying that PRK was first introduced by Marguerite McDonnell et al. In 1988. Unfortunately, the popularity rapidly faded when LASIK was popularized in the late 1990s because it offered a faster visual rehabilitation. And as of now, again, there's a renewed interest, resurgence of PRK. Most of the refractive surgeons are now opting for more of the PRK in their practice. Especially in cases when there is a suspicious topography, there's a thin cornea, eyes with the basement membrane dystrophy, and it has been shown to be safe and effective and quite predictable in low to moderate myopia. A Cochrane review of PRK versus LASIK has showed that obviously LASIK had a faster visual recovery, but the final uncorrected visual acuity was comparable in both the scenarios, and there was not much difference in the visual acuity. Indications of PRK, like I said, thin corneas, suspicious corneas, in combination with cross-linking, like as in the Athens protocol, sometimes we do that. Like these topographies, when you have a little borderline pachymetry, you have a little suspicious anterior float in the bad, or you have in the anterior curvature map something which is not looking that great, you would definitely want to go in for a surface ablation procedure rather than a LASIK. And obviously it's economical both for the surgeon and the patient because there is no use of the microkeratome. So it's basically cost effective for both the patient and the surgeon. The advantages over LASIK because there's no flap, so obviously the corneal biomechanics is not interfered with, and it maintains the stability of the cornea, and hence there is less liability of ectasia, and more residual bed is left, and it can be taken up for borderline corneas, and the suction ring is not applied, so the posterior segment is safer here. Now, while selecting the patient, we need to take a proper history of collagen vasculars, autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, Sjogren syndrome, because there could be unpredictable corneal wound healing with the potential for corneal melting also at times. And you need to take a proper history of keloid formation in the body and prior HSV, because sometimes while applying laser, excimer laser on these herpetic scars, there could be a recurrence of the HSV keratitis. So we need to be very sure that sometimes these nebular scars, we shouldn't be very aggressive with these patients. Yes, I can do a PRK in this patient because it has a nebular scar. So need to take a proper history. For patients with basement membrane dystrophy, that is map dot fingerprint dystrophy, PRK is a technique of choice because it enhances the epithelial adhesion, whereas the microkeratome friction in LASIK may cause a frank epithelial defect in such cases. Patients with narrow palpebral aperture, small eyes, a prominent brow ridge, sometimes placing the suction ring could be very difficult. So in such cases, PRK becomes a technique of choice. Now the question arises, how much myopia can I treat with the PRK? Most of the studies have seen, and we have seen that with the higher degrees of myopia, there is an increased severity of haze and loss of BCVA, which is one of the disadvantages of doing PRK in higher myopia. There is increased chance of regression also and less likelihood of getting a good vision, that is 20/40 or better. But however, no consensus has been reached in most of the studies, but still a lot of studies have agreed that, that it is unacceptable procedure for myopia for more than 6 diopters. Seeler et al. Have found that the presence of scar tissue in 1% of the eyes that did not exceed 6 diopters, and in as high as 17% of the eyes, the PRK haze and the scarring was found when the treatment was more than 6 diopters. And Bronson et al. Have found out that with the ablation depths of greater than 80 microns produced higher levels of haze with decreased visual acuity than ablations less than 80 microns. So usually we set our upper limit as 6 diopters while treating the refractive error -6, and we need to see that the ablation depth should be more than 80 microns when we are doing a PRK. And in smaller diameter ablations, the corneal subepithelial haze is more. This is a confocal microscopy photograph of a virgin cornea, the first picture, whereas the second picture is treated eye after surface ablation post-op around 6 weeks. And you can see there is more scattering of the light because of the myofibroblast proliferation. The nuclei, the cell bodies, and the dendritic processes are all scattering light, and because of which the opacity develops, the subepithelial scarring develops in such patients. This is basically because of the myofibroblast proliferation. The keratocytes, they become converted into myofibroblasts. What is the role of mitomycin C? Mitomycin C is an alkylating agent. It has cytotoxic and antimitotic properties. It reduces the myofibroblast repopulation after surface ablation, and therefore reduces the risk of postoperative corneal haze. We use it both prophylactically, intraoperatively while doing the procedure, as well as sometimes it is also used therapeutically when a patient comes to us with a haze to treat pre-existing haze. There is no definite evidence how much what is the diopter limit, or what is the ablation depth at which we need to apply mitomycin C. So there is no definite cutoff, but usually in my practice, less than 3 diopters, I don't use mitomycin. If the refractive error is more than 3 diopters, then definitely I would like to go in for mitomycin. The concentration that is generally used is 0.02%. However, some studies have shown that for lesser myopias, less than 6 diopters, even 0.002% or 0.01% is also effective. And this dose of mitomycin C is very safe and we don't see many side effects with this dose of mitomycin C. What is transepithelial PRK? It is a procedure in which the epithelium is first removed by PTK followed by PRK in a single step with the excimer laser. And the size of the PTK treatment zone is aligned with the PRK ablation zone. So basically the healing is faster because the epithelial defect which is created is very, very precise and it is not big. And an eye tracker is active throughout the entire procedure. So Wavefront Optimize software is used to create the ablation profile. The epithelial defect which is created with the Streamlight with the PTK treatment is 7 millimeters for myopia and 9 millimeters for mixed myopic astigmatism. And the laser ablation profile is basically usually kept at 6.5. You can see the clear-cut margins of the PTK treatment when the Streamlight treatment is done, transepithelial PRK. The first picture shows with the Streamlight, the epithelial defect created versus the mechanical blunt spatula or the Amoyles brush. So this is a video. It's a very fast procedure. It's a one-step, single-step procedure in which the epithelium is removed as well as the laser ablation is done. You can see this is a 9 millimeter zone because it's a mixed myopic astigmatism. So large zone is created. Very smooth and very precise, and now the central area is being treated 6.5 millimeter for the correction of the PAR. And it's a very fast and smooth process. The post-op recovery is fast. Patient is very comfortable. So this is a study which compared the conventional PRK versus the transepithelial PRK. They selected 200 eyes in which 100 eyes underwent the transepithelial PRK versus 100 eyes which underwent the conventional PRK, and they found the visual recovery was faster in eyes with transepithelial PRK. because the epithelial defect healed faster in such eyes, and the post-operative comfort was also better. Whenever we are doing an enhancement, we need to be sure whether the power, the residual refraction is basically because of the epithelial hyperplasia, or whether it is because of the regression, or whether it is because of the. So can I continue for a minute, sir? So basically, we need to be sure that it's because of the initial undercorrection, or whether it's because of the regression. And sometimes the regression could be because of the epithelial hyperplasia, and when we are doing an enhancement in such cases, there could be an overcorrection. So we need to be sure about that. Other problems with PRK could be a persistent defect, infection, regression, slow rehabilitation, scar formation. This is a picture of a haze. This is scar formation. Sometimes, very rarely, there could be an infection because of a persistent epithelial defect. How do we avoid haze? Preoperatively, mitomycin C. Intraoperatively, mitomycin C. Preoperatively, ask thoroughly about the healing of the wounds. Sometimes the haze responds to an increase in the frequency and intensity of steroids. Low dose steroids can be continued for up to 3 months post-op. Sometimes PTK with mitomycin C can be performed. Reablation should be delayed for at least 6 months. The refraction is often inaccurate and overestimates the amount of myopia in the presence of haze. Sometimes systemic vitamin C also helps in reducing the haze. Concluding, PRK is a safe, effective and predictable technique for the correction of low to moderate myopia, astigmatism and low hyperopia. The disadvantages are post-operative discomfort, length of the time required for visual recovery, and increased haze. Wound modulating agents such as mitomycin C are expanding the range of treatable refractive errors. And this is a treatment of choice in patients with basement membrane dystrophy and thin corneas. And transepithelial PRK leads to faster visual recovery and lesser post-op discomfort. Thank you.